Welcome back for the fourth and final season of Beyond the Venue podcast. When I started this project almost 4 years ago, I had absolutely no idea that I would be the one navigating beyond the venue by returning to the classroom. Before diving into my second year as a doctoral student, I figured it was a great time to wrap up this podcast by offering my listeners a variety of perspectives and experiences of life in academia. This semester, you'll be hearing from my friends, colleagues, classmates, and more, all of whom I've had the pleasure of working with since my return to Temple University a few years ago. Let's hear from them now. My guest today is my friend Kizzy Davis. Kizzy, how are you today?
Good, great. Thanks for having me.
So excited to have you on the show. So, like several of my guests I've had on the podcast in the past, Kizzy and I have never actually met in person, but we have Zoomed together many times over the past. Oh goodness, I feel like so we had the privilege of getting to meet one another through academic research study. Which is now the manuscript, as they call it. Like once you write the paper, when you send it off to a journal for publication, they refer to it as a manuscript, which was new terminology for me. And the correct, I wrote this down so I could get all of it. So we submitted our manuscript, Good Trouble: Why Black Professionals Remain in Higher Education Despite Experiences of Racism. And we submitted it to the International Journal of Qualitative Studies and Education. So that is a lot of words to start this podcast off, but we're doctoral students, so that's how we do. So there were 5 of us working on the study together, and so Kizzy and I were the only 2 non-doctors on the study.
Correct.
And this was also for both of us our first time putting a manuscript together like this. And so we're going to talk all about, because I know our experiences probably were very similar but very different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Me being the one white lady with 4 wonderful Black women on the study, and also having a lot to learn as a freshie on the research front.
Absolutely, right.
So
Newbie for sure.
So newbie. So even though I do have my one published article in Journal of Leisure Studies, thanks again to Ben Torsey for helping me get that published. But this was the first time working as a team, like just such a wild experience. So I had such a good time working with Kizzy that I really wanted to bring her on the show. So so Kizzy, we'll talk about the research project in a hot minute, but can
sure.
you share with our audience like your backstory? Because your signature, your title in and of itself, you're an adjunct, you're a doctoral student, you're an either assistant or associate director of something super awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now? And then, what's your backstory? How did you end up putting all of these hats on?
Sure, absolutely. Well, my background is definitely my bachelor's in elementary education. I was in the public educational system, K through 12. I literally taught almost every grade except for like first grade and maybe kindergarten. But I've also taught pre-K, so my experience really comes from the public educational school setting. And it was there when I was working with high school students, I kind of wanted to pivot into higher ed. I wasn't quite sure, but I worked with senior students and they were kind of like in the crossroads of where they wanted to go, if college wasn't for me, if college was for me. And so because I was planning in the public educational system for so long, I really didn't know how to pivot. But within education, there's so many branches. And so I was able to have an opportunity to do an admissions counselor temp position. There was a person that was on maternity leave. So it was a perfect transition to kind of get my feet wet. And I really haven't turned back since. That was kind of my gateway into higher ed. And then I kind of figured, do I want to do admissions? Do I want to do academic advising? I did decide to do academic advising. So I was an academic advisor. And I recently kind of like fell into this position as Assistant Director of Academic and Student Services at the Temple University Center City campus, which is a cusp of me doing academic advising, but also planning any of the administration's academic services at the campus. I pretty much carry all of that and create anything, whether it's newsletters, updating students with information. But my main mission is really student success and helping students succeed and helping students win. And so that's what really is propelling me to into becoming a doctoral student. And that's what kind of like led me into that. I really want to be able to make a difference. And in order to do that within higher education, I kind of really believe that you have to change the people at the top. And so if I'm not part of being a change agent, then I'm really just complaining and not being part of the solution. So that's how I kind of came into higher ed.
I love that. So two follow-up questions on that. One, were your K through 12 teaching, was that within the Philadelphia school district?
Mm. Wow. Great question. I started off in the Baltimore school, city school systems. That's
Oh
where
my
I received
goodness.
my undergrad. So
My
I
only
went
knowledge
to,
about that is from The Wire. So
well, listen,
that's
The
that.
Wire is, to
How
say the least,
accurate is season 4?
it is very accurate. Just to kind of give you a glimpse, my last, like, I just kind of like, I needed to pivot. I was teaching, I believe it was third grade, and I had a student that he had an ankle monitor on. He had a parole officer or probation officer. I never saw his mother, but I did see his probation officer. And it was real because I didn't know what was going on with the student. And the principal repeatedly wanted me to take anecdotal notes on the student and was really giving me information. And when I talked to a second grade teacher, she was like, oh, he held two people up at gunpoint in second grade. So that's why he has a probation officer. And so that is very real in being able to handle students like that and not just, let alone teaching students. And sad to say, sometimes I was really concerned about my life. Like at any given time, I really felt this particular student could come in and just really take us all out. Right. And like, what it's frightening to think of, but and now, and it's kind of like everywhere, even higher ed. But yeah, it's very, very real, and I really owe it all to Morgan State University, which is a historical Black college. That they really early on kind of got you into the classrooms. Like by sophomore year, like beginning of sophomore year, we were in the classroom where we were helping the teachers or what have you. That I had a friend that she knew from sophomore year she did not want to continue with elementary education. She was going to
Right.
continue pursue, but she ended up getting a job with federal government and really never looked back. But I'm grateful and thankful for Morgan to provide that opportunity, because I do work with students right now in a particular program that I'm working with, advising students that sometimes they do their student teaching in the last semester and they're like aha moment, like, oh, I don't want to, I don't think I can do this moving forward. And sometimes we pick up students from college education in the particular program that I'm advising here at Temple, which is the Bachelor of General Studies. And that program is really for students who maybe might be a current Temple student and their particular major isn't working out for them. Or if you were previously a student, whether at Temple or in another university, and life happened and you kind of took some time, 5-10 years off, and you're looking to come back when able to get a degree in a fast way, this could be a possible program for you. So yeah, that's it for the as far as the assistant director and how I kind of got involved into this position and into this role.
Wow, that is fascinating. So I don't think Dr. Johnson attended an HBCU, but she does a lot of research projects surrounding HBCU. So listeners, my research assistantship that is paying for me to for my first 2 years of my PhD program. I'm
Nice.
working with this outstanding woman, Dr. Jennifer Johnson, who
Amazing.
leads a it's a like a students what was it it's got a name. It's like a collaborative. It's like the Student Success
Yes, it's the
Collaborative.
College Success Research Collaborative.
Thank you. So like, I she's been trying to move past like the Dr. Johnson Research Collective. It's,
Yes.
can we call it the overarching name? And so the Casson College study, it was actually the second round. And so that was one of the arms of this research collaborative. And she also does one of the other pods of research that she does is surrounding HBCUs. So that's where I was first introduced to her work. I took qualitative research, non-matriculated, while I was still figuring out, like, okay, is a doctoral program the right place for me to go? And so
Right.
read one of her papers regarding, I think it was like whether it was like motivations to attend HBCUs. So I'm kind of curious, like, was it always in your mindset of my undergraduate program needs to be at an HBCU? Was it just the right fit with Morgan State, or did you kind of fall backwards into it? How did you end up there?
Oh wow, MG, this is such a great question. No, I actually attended HBCU college tour when I was in high school. However, it was not really like I needed to be at the HBCU. I actually, my very first college, well, I love the college process. So it's funny that I'm an advisor now because I remember being in the library in high school before the internet and sitting there for hours looking over Princeton Review of the best colleges, right? And went on a
Those
lot of college
printouts,
tours.
the magazines,
Oh,
getting
everything,
the
right?
physical copy of like who's the best and why.
Exactly. And so I had the opportunity in high school in my senior year. I was a guidance counselor helper. And so because of that, I had the opportunity to retrieve all the mail and the guidance. So any open house that were being sponsored by colleges, I had them right hot off the press. And so there was actually a Black alumni from Wellesley College in Wellesley, Massachusetts, that did this minority weekend getaway to Wellesley. And I was like in love. I was like, this is it. I'm going to Wellesley, say less. Hillary Clinton went here. All these famous women that are so powerful like went here. I definitely should be here. But I really felt that I just wouldn't qualify. I thought that I didn't have the grades. I never applied. So I didn't even believe in myself, right? And I didn't have anybody say, hey, you can do it, you can try. Even when the students that I met there and I still kept in contact with, like, you should apply. I thought you would never get in, but try to find something close to similar. And so that I wanted a women's college. I did want that. And so I ended up at a women's college called Simmons College in Boston, Massachusetts. So it's a small private school, all women. And I thought, oh, well, it's probably going to be similar to Wellesley. And I went for 1 year. I did not feel the same feeling I felt when I first went to Wellesley, and the women there really weren't cohesive and like culturally like warm and welcome. The minority women, which I felt that like I needed that if I was going to be 6 hours away. I'm a Jersey girl, so for me to
Okay.
be 6 hours from Jersey, 6 to 8 hours, I definitely needed some type of support. So I didn't receive the support from my peers. I didn't receive it from my faculty. And so after that, I did transition. I took a semester. I came back home. I did a semester at community college, and then I kind of thought about my future and what I wanted to do. Because at first I was a pre med because I was like, hey, I want to make a lot of money. I want to live in a mansion. This is just the way to go, right? But when I sat down and started really asking myself those questions, like, what do I really want to do? It was education. So then I thought about who do I know that is successful in education. And I had a girlfriend that I went to high school with. Her mom was an assistant principal. And I thought, well, they have a nice home. Her dad, they both went to HBCUs, but the mom, she was great with education, and Morgan was known for education. She went to Morgan. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to check out Morgan and Howard. I went to Morgan and I kind of just like, I went to the campus. It just kind of spoke to me. And that's where I graduated from.
That's awesome. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
It's just such a fascinating process, like how at the age of like 16, 17, 18, it's like, okay, figure out where you're going to spend an insane amount of money and decide the rest of your entire life. And so I feel like because I've had a very kind of like unorthodox journey to get to where I am now, I'm always very encouraging. Exactly what you did. Like you found someone who's doing something interesting, and you're like, "Hey, what's up? Like, what's your story? How did you get here?" And
Right.
you got this extra experience of being able to get into the classroom and say like, "Okay, this is interesting." Where for sounds like your classmates, they're like, "Nope, not my scene."
Right.
And so it's all about like you have to just get in there. You have to talk to people. You have to experience and community. Like that's such a huge thing, no matter where you are. And I'm
Absolutely.
I'm glad that you made the choice to say like this place isn't serving me. I'm going to go home. I'm going to regroup because not everybody has the chutzpah to make that decision. Some people are just like, "Oh, I'm just going to be miserable," or they might, drop out entirely. And so I think it's great that you just took ownership of your own life and said like, "Okay, this is what I'm going to do." So
Well,
I it's to you.
I did take some ownership, but then in the same time, my parents, I could not sit home and do anything. And so if I was coming back home, I needed to have a plan. So you were either going to be working or you were going to school. A little bit of my background, my background, I'm Afro Latina. So my parents, my culture is Panamanian from Panama. And so definitely believe in working hard, having maybe three, four jobs. So that's why I'm like very familiar and just comfortable with wearing so many hats. But education is a top priority for my parents, and so it is I had to figure it out. If this wasn't it, I couldn't say come home and not have anything planned. Like I had to like go to community college, and it's kind of interesting because when you see just what I see from people who might have descendants that are West Indian or Caribbean or Latin, their focus and the emphasis of education could be different from some who might be just like from African American coming from, just being born in the States. I see a huge difference where my mom and dad, it wasn't pressing so much like you have to have A's and B's, but I could not bring home any grades less than a C, or like it was going to be a problem. Like, is this the best you could do? That kind of also sparked my interest in helping students be successful, and just in all capacities, because I know what I had to endure and what I had to figure out quickly. It's scary now, not like what you said, being 17, 16, planning out the next 5 years and you don't even know who you are. Like,
Mhm.
you just that's difficult. So yeah. I'm glad I was able to figure it out. And I'm glad that when I did go to Morgan, I did get the support, I did get the community, that really was able for me to like go and get my master's, not have a problem, not feel like the imposter syndrome that I shouldn't be here. Um, so it was eye opening. I tell people it was like my Wakanda experience. I believe that anybody should have. If you are a minority, you should absolutely have that experience because it was life changing. I think you should have both experiences actually.
Where did you get your master's degree from, and like what's your master's in?
Yep. So my master's is from Rider University, and that's in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. And my master's in higher educational administration, educational leadership, same, same. And then I'm currently pursuing my doctorates, right, my EDD in higher ed administration as well. And so I've kind of known all along I wanted to be in a higher level in education. Like when I was just in a K through 12 setting, I was striving to be a principal. And so that was the whole reason why I received my master's. I received my assistant principal certificate in Maryland. Um, but then, I changed paths. So now, I'll share with you one day, I would love to be president of a college or a university. I don't know what the way it is right now, the front of higher ed and how minorities, women are being dealt with in those higher executive positions. It seems it can be challenging, but I won't let that deter me from my ultimate goal in being at the top to help students succeed and be able to make create policies or to be able to be more of an advocate when creating programs or developing programs to help the students be successful. And so that's what keeps me going.
I love it. And I mean, we have some amazing black women running the show in the College of Education Human Development at Temple. We've got Dean Sheely, who's now in charge, and
Yeah.
and now Dr. Johnson is the associate dean of student success.
Um,
So
so I'm so excited for her.
I hope that the two of you can continue to work together as well, based
Me
on your
too.
passions and your interests, and her being a higher ed professor as well. So one of the things I will jump back to real quick. So there
Yeah.
is this difference. I don't know if other colleges offer an EDD. I would assume that that's just specific to education, but it's like an educational doctorate as opposed to like a PhD. So we're all doing basically the same thing. So I'm pursuing a PhD in education with a concentration in educational psychology, which just looks at how and why people learn. And so I feel like the common denominator with the EDDs, it seems to be folks who are currently working at Temple and have the opportunity to pursue this higher education degree, to continue to work in administration and like make things better. So you're still going to get that doctor title at the end, but I
Right.
feel like it involves a lot less research, than those of us pursuing our PhD. And so, folks that work at Temple or already work in the academy, as we call it, if you're
Right.
working in academia, that it's that decision that you have to make for yourself of like which degree is going to be better. So based on your past and your future goals, it does sound like an EDD is a perfect fit for you to continue to like work, um within the confines of the administration to one day rule the school.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious how far along you are in the program. So I have done 1 year of coursework and I'll have another year of coursework. And so by this time next year, I'll be working on my dissertation proposal, a topic of which I have no idea what it's going to be. I do have a very intensive research semester coming up with my faculty advisor. Hopefully come spring semester, I'll have a better idea. But I'm curious, like how many classes have you taken? Has it just been kind of speckled in? And with that said, have you taken any courses that you're like, oh man, this was my jam. It was so influential. I love the professor. So where are you at in your progress?
Sure. It's kind of, I feel like I'm on autopilot. Actually, I kind of, no, seriously, I kind of came in similar, non-matriculate student because I really was like, oh my goodness, it's been 10 years since you've been in class. Like,
So to jump in, non-matriculated, hopefully that's a relatively familiar term, but non-matriculated just means you have not been accepted into the program yet. And I feel like Temple was very adamant about telling you, like, you can pay us for this course, but you taking this class, even if you get an A, does not mean you'll get accepted into the program. But
yes,
yes, 100%, it is an excellent way to like dip your toe back in the water to be like, do I really want to do this with my life? Is this where I'm headed? So, what was your first non-matriculated class you took?
my first class I took was it was the equity class with Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, oh, okay.
And it was amazing because, again, I was nervous because I haven't been in class in so long.
Mhm.
And so I did feel comfortable when I saw somebody that looked like me. Because they weren't going to judge me because I didn't know the APA format, right? When I went to school, it was MLA format. And so when I did my first paper, she was like, "Oh, this is good, right? But you just gotta, learn the APA format." I was like clues, and I'm still like figuring out certain parts with references and things of that, right? Um, and so that was my very first class, and Dr. Johnson was absolutely amazing. And so that kind of started, and I said, "Okay, you know what? I survived the first class." Um, And I actually, it was wow. She was just so understanding, because I actually had, like, during that semester, because I'm working, I started this class, I actually had surgery, and I thought, okay, I'll be fine. And it didn't go so well. And I
Mm.
ended up in ICU.
Oof.
And so I was literally like fighting for my life that I wasn't able to contact Professor Johnson or anybody. And she was able to, like, you know what, didn't give me an F, right? Like maybe
Mhm.
another professor might have. She was like, hey, something's happening. And was able to give me incomplete. I was able to, once I got out the hospital, over the summer, worked on my incomplete and was able to submit the rest of the work. But I just think about, if it wasn't Dr. Johnson, it was just another professor, that maybe somebody who didn't look like me, would they have been understanding? Would they have been so understanding as she was? Because she really was. So that kind of helped me out too. And then I just started going. So according to Dr. Johnson, I checked in with her maybe like a month ago, because I was like, wow, is she still gonna be my advisor? Because she's currently my advisor. You know, she's this big wig now. I don't know. And when I did check in her, she was like, oh, you're halfway done. I'm like, I'm halfway done the program. Are you are you sure? Like, now this is scary. Like, cause when I looked, I was like, I think I might be halfway done. I'm not sure. That's when I kind of got a little nervous, because I was thinking, well, gee, if you're halfway done, you should be like figuring out your dissertation, like topic, or what what are you gonna do? Like, what is your topic? I know my interest, but there are a few different interests. Like, how do you kind of like narrow it down? And so that's how I got into the research team, just to kind of like figure out the process. And I had asked a girlfriend of mine. She was actually on the team, I think previously on the collaborative team. And she said, oh yeah, you know what? You just like look up information here and there. Well, that was a whole lie. We were in a full blown I was like, I didn't sign up for this. Well, I guess I did, because this is a full research blown art. This is officially like beginning to end. Now we have a manuscript, right? That was unfamiliar terminology to me. This is a manuscript of like the draft of the final draft of our final document that we're going to submit in the process. And um, just being able, you have to actually get a certificate before you can even begin and take these modules. And because it's a serious, like, you know, studying human subjects. And I
Mhm.
was like, wow, this is not just looking something up.
Well, the
We
nice thing
surpassed
is
that.
those the certification that we got lasts for 3 years. So that's great news. Cuz I also like I had to do like a tiny little subsection of that before taking qualitative research, which was my non-matriculated class. Um but still it was like 18 more modules that I had to do. And so luckily I had already done it I guess in like September. So like when I started working with Dr. Johnson, at the end of August at the start of fall semester, it was like, okay, whenever you can get this IRB done, like for my research project for the grant that I'm a part of. And
Wow.
so then it's like, okay, we're getting the fall semester into swing. Like what with the research collaborative, like what pick two that like pique your interest. So I don't even remember what the second one was. I feel like the study was kind of at a lull.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever physically been into Dr. Johnson's office, but the first time I met with her in person, um, it was like this like Leslie Nope's level of organization and color coding, and I'm like, I love this. I am here for this content that she
Oh,
has
wow.
this whiteboard with like color coded sticky notes based on which like kind of like research pod it falls under,
Wow.
and she moves them around to like where she is with like the different projects.
Wow.
It was next level organization. I was very impressed. And so I knew she was going to be very busy, but she said that like with all of her research projects, they all seem to like everything happens at the same time.
She did
That
say that.
you would, if you're involved in a bunch of different things, it'd be nice of like, okay, for this one, we're doing the interviews at the same time, like you're writing the manuscript for somebody else. But she's like, no, everything happens at the same time. And so we did the qualitative interview. So I did not participate in interviewing.
Okay.
Um, I'm still very green at that. So for other studies that I've been a part of, like I've been able to like sit in and listen.
Oh, wow.
And there's been like someone like a Dr. Johnson, like someone else who's a doctor that I will
Kind of
jump
shadow.
in if I have a follow up
Okay.
question. Exactly. Um, so like observing something they might not have seen and like asking a question about it. But when I did my interview for my qualitative research project, the only other real experience I'd had with that had been doing the podcast. And so
Wow.
I realized I was like, this is something I'm really going to need to work on because it was so difficult asking questions and just, yes, that is interesting. Let's move on, as opposed to like wanting to engage in conversations. And
Gauge,
so
right.
I do know that that's
That would be
something that I will
challenging.
need practice on. So it's been really helpful to be, essentially like a second, to be able to see how, the doctors ask the questions, engage, jump around with so you have to submit all of your interview questions into the institutional review board for approval. And so they refer to that as the interview protocol, which all these names, they just crack me up. Who came up with all this? So at the interview protocol, like you can't kind of jump around. And it's like, yeah, that's the same thing I'll do in my podcast. It's like if I was going to ask you question two, but it makes more sense to come up,
Right.
at the end. So I definitely have some practice to do before I feel like I'll feel comfortable enough like doing an interview. Um, so we'll see.
Yeah, I
But
hear
yeah, I
you.
feel
No,
like
I'm same here.
so we did the interviews for the casting college study, I feel like in like November, December. And like when did you join the casting college team? Because I feel like my first meeting was in early October, and that's when we were like getting all the interviews scheduled.
Feel like
Was it December?
I feel like it was either December or like January
Okay.
because I didn't do any interviews, but I knew like I feel like Dr. Scott and Johns were like wrapping up the interviews.
Okay, yeah, because there were a couple that I remember that
They
were
were like
scheduled for January, and it's like they didn't want to do any more once spring semester started for like continuity. So that way you're like still thinking about kind of like fall semester esque before
right.
moving on to spring. And I'm like, I would not have thought of that. That is interesting.
And I'm just when I think about I just want the same team when it comes my time. I think everybody was amazing. Like I just maybe because it's my first time, but just for women to come together for something that I'm very heavily interested in and then to execute it, right? And just the amount of time we dedicated that I was like, wow, this is the same amount of time you're going to dedicate, if not more, to your dissertation. Like, and so I'm
But
just
no
like,
4 p.m. Friday meetings. My
I'm
friends are
having,
like, "Why don't you just quit?" And I'm like, "I don't want to quit because like I was like that seems silly. Like as frustrated as I am to have a 4 p.m. Friday meeting, because of course, all my friends have like jobby jobs, the 9 to
right.
5 types. And so to them it's completely outrageous. To me it's outrageous, but I was like, I really believe in this work. And like I'm not like that is I'm not going to give up working
It,
towards something.
yeah.
Really
It,
believe in it because I find the meeting time silly. And so once we were able to move to like noon on Thursdays, I feel like I
oh,
like celebrated after that last like Friday meeting. I was like, yeah, fri-
it was so funny because like every meeting you kept like, is there any way we could like move this? I was like, MG's not letting us go, and I'm with her. Listen, I'm with you. I'm a believer. I don't even think there should never be a meeting that starts before 9 a.m. If you ask me, like it should start at 10 a.m. All
agree,
meetings,
agree.
and Fridays. I don't even think we should have meetings on Fridays. But if we must, it's early in the mornings, not past I don't know 2 p.m. But yeah,
Well,
that
I
was
think the
it
problem
was
too
hard.
with the school year, I was teaching. So I did my teaching. They call it a teaching apprenticeship. So I don't know if the EDDs are required to do that at all. But it's a one semester, so you get class credit, and
Mhm.
you're basically functioning exactly as like a TA, a teaching assistant. So you've got a professor who teaches the lecture, and then, you know, 3 or 4 teaching assistants who teach our individual recitations. And so,
Oh, okay.
because I was not familiar with the course and was uh, being a TA in that class for the first time. Lectures were at 3:30 on Thursdays, and I didn't want to miss the lecture because it'd be one thing. It's like, okay, I'm a teaching assistant. This is my, you know, third, fourth semester teaching this class. I won't
Right.
need to go to the lecture because I already know the material. But so because I had that 3:30 conflict, I think I might have been the only one, and so it's like, well, we can't
No,
meet
I think I
at
had
3 or 4 on
you
Thursday.
I
So
had a class. I actually had a
you had
class
class.
that I
Okay.
was in on Thursday. So it just
Okay. It
it
wasn't just me.
no, it was you and I both. Like I would have loved to have it another day, but I had class like I think at 5:30. So it just or like yeah, I would have to get to class. So it was impossible. But I get it because I was telling my brother, I was like, wow, this is what people do. And you have some people that have 4 or 5 different publications like at the same time going on. This is amazing to me because I'm like, this separates the real from the fake because we're here Friday dedicating our time for like what you're ready to be doing. I'm ready to do some other things at 4 p.m. and it does not involve work at Friday. I can tell you that.
Well, hopefully this all ends up with our names on a publication that we can add to our CV. But you know, that was the advice I had gotten was just do as much as you can while you're in school, in terms of like getting involved in different research projects because um, that the advice was say yes to everything, and so that kind of became the running joke of like, okay, I'll say yes to everything except 4 p.m. Friday meetings. So
Yes.
Um, so I also would definitely encourage you, like, if there's like something that you're interested in, but you're not really sure if it's like dissertation material, like come up with your own study. And like
I was thinking that.
that's what I've been encouraged to do. So you know, particularly like as you're approaching fall semester, if there's a course that you're like looking into like a particular like problem or something, or just something pops in your head, like that's the way to go and like start because that's ultimately like going to set the stage for like how you're going to approach your dissertation.
Right.
But speaking
Yeah. No,
of, like,
that's good
what do
advice.
you got? What do you have on the horizon for fall? Are you taking like a kind of a 2 course load or taking a little bit
I
easier?
I'm taking it's actually interesting. I'm actually taking research methods. And I think that
You
was
have a
what
Monday night with Dr. Bailey?
yes.
Yes.
Are you in there too?
Yeah, I'm so
Oh my
excited.
God, God hears all my prayers. Listen,
I'm so excited. Yeah, Monday nights with Dr. Bailey. Dr. Bailey's awesome. I have not had
everybody
the
tells me that
professor.
Dr. Bailey is going to really set you up for your dissertation. Is that
Yes.
true?
Yes, I think we're in good hands. Well, this is exciting news. So I will now see you every Monday night,
Yes.
except for Labor Day, starting Monday, August 26th. This is
Oh
awesome
my
news.
gosh, I did not know that.
Yeah,
And
that's
I was
awesome.
worried because I thought like people were saying you that was a class I should have probably took first if I was actually going to like 12
So
round.
that is the conversation that I've had with several other friends. So I have already taken qualitative and quantitative research.
Okay.
And so some folks have taken research methods first and then taken qualitative and quantitative, and I it's interesting because like you don't really know like what's better, like it just is what it
Okay.
is. And
Right.
so as a full-time PhD student, it's like it's just set, you're either going to take research methods first or you're going to take qualitative first, like it just
Okay.
it's like it's however like whatever year you start. And so I think now that you've gone, so even if you haven't taken qualitative, um having gone through the motions of of working on a qualitative research project will definitely give you a significantly larger insight into that type of research. um I find quant quant is just not my jam. I am excited about this research methods class because I feel like I'm ultimately going to be like a mixed methods researcher. So like doing the interviews, but at the same time, like
Yes.
maybe doing a survey to like back up or like support my data. Um,
Same here.
so I too am very excited about this class. So we will again community. We are going to be here for each
Yes.
other, and it's always so nice knowing someone in the classroom um versus like walking into it blindly and like not knowing anybody at all.
I can't stress that enough. I know there's like a couple students that like, I know like advisor, like there's one, Shannon Martin. She's really great. She's an academic advisor. So I knew her from like the academic advising capacity, but then I met her also like as a classmate. And so I see her, we've been in a few classes together, but it is nice when you see another familiar face. I wholeheartedly agree. Cause I'm like, let me put Stan on standby. I already got her number. Like, MG, I'm gonna need yours. Like, oh yeah, like now we're gonna surpass emails now. You have no idea. I won't blow you up, but yeah, because I like to keep abreast and like sometimes life happens. I might miss a class. So it's always nice if you can have somebody to like be that ear that when you're not there, can hey, what summarize what we talked about in class last night. So I'm like over the moon
Yeah,
excited about you being in the
so
class. Okay.
excited. This is awesome. Kizzy, let me ask you about your work-life balance. We've already talked about the fact that you are doing 9 million things. How do you kind of, are you a time blocker? Are you good at saying no? How do you manage, your own mental health and taking care of yourself on top of all the 9 million things that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a great question because that's definitely needed. And sometimes people really don't talk about that part. Like you need time or time for just yourself. Like, so I'm big on self care. So on top of me being an adjunct, a student, assistant director of academics, I'm also a Mary Kay beauty consultant. And
Oh,
so it's big on self care. That kind of like was kind of like the lead way into like taking time out for me, and sometimes people think it's about makeup, and it's really not about makeup. It's me, it's more about self-confidence. And so that's what I always like tell people. So once I started like taking time for myself, um just taking carving 5 minutes out, because you would ask me, I'm like, I don't even have 5 minutes, I don't even have time to breathe or blink. Are you serious? Are you crazy? And so that was kind of how I first started, like, wow, you know what, when you start taking time out for yourself, investing in yourself. And then I'm big on taking time, and like I live by the water. And so just like take a moment, 5 minutes, stop, go by the water, just be. Because sometimes we're so busy that we're not taking time to smell the roses or enjoy
hmm
the scenery. And I think you should,
hmm
that kind of helps me. That brings a solace to me. But then also sometimes like, hey, you need those mental days, or those days, like for instance, I love to be by the water. So I'm already like today, I was like, oh man, you know what? Saturday seems like a perfect beach day. So far it's looking like it's gonna be a great beach day. They said it's gonna be like might be another heat wave starting on Thursday-ish. I don't know. No, we don't want to hear that, but I definitely was like, wow, I know, you know what, Saturday and Sunday, you should try to hit the shore. Because I know once the fall semester starts, right? Like I'm already gonna be working on um my curriculum for the fall for my students, and like what am I gonna do different? What am I gonna add? And so like getting myself into that mode, I think it's so important that you need to take time out for yourself. And so taking those mental health days, right? It doesn't have to be you have to be sick. It could be, hey, I'm checking in with myself and how are you today? Right. And so sometimes I do like check in. I am my own consultant. How are you feeling today? Are you okay? Can you handle this? And when you talk about organizing, I definitely am like the top 6 things I need to do today. So I have like a to do now, right? Must do, do later, um, type of organization that I do. So these are the 6 things I have to get done a day, and I list them by prioritizing them. And then when I look at my calendar, like what has to be done first, and kind of work off of that. And so far, that's good. And if I have 5 or 6 things on my to-do list and something didn't get done, it just kind of carries over to the next day. So that's what's been working. And that's kind of how I operate with my organization and just taking some time out just for me.
I love it. Yeah, I operate pretty similarly. It'll be I approach the semester where it's like, okay, when is everything due? And like papers that are due, finals, like I'll back it up
Yes.
through the entire semester so that way um like I'll know maybe if like, for finals it's like, okay, I had I think my was it in the yeah, my first like full-time semester, I had 4 papers in 8 days due. And so it was one of those things that it's like, okay, do not make any plans for the weekend prior, or, we've got our goofy entire week of Thanksgiving off, and then we come back and have 2 weeks of classes and then go on holiday break. And so it just, even to that, like backing up, like, what can I do so I'm not, having to write while I'm on vacation and things like that, that it's, um, having a very like type A spreadsheet loving personality has been very, very helpful as a doctoral student. And so, but I do the same thing in terms of, for me, like I do group fitness 3 times a week. And like that is, I'll, I'll cancel it if there is like a group meeting or something that like it's out of the blue,
Yeah.
can't be changed, et cetera.
I
That's
love
fine.
this. Now, what kind of group fitness is this? Like a Zumba class? Is this a
Yeah, so it's strength training. And so the way that the gym is set up, it's women only. They do uh so this is Train and Nourish. They've got 4 locations, East Passyunk, Art Museum, Fishtown, and Ardmore.
oh my
And so
gosh.
they only do group fitness and personal training, and it's basically like the size of a row home, like the South Philly location.
Okay.
And for the group fitness classes, they're an hour. There's only 10 people who are able to sign up at a time, 10
I love it. It's
stations.
nice and
So you
intimate.
do each
Okay.
station and you do 4 rounds
Oh
of the
wow.
stations. So it's basically like 40 minutes of working out. But I have to, like, I love fitness where you book it online and like you're held accountable to go.
I love this.
And so
Something I would need.
I've done Monday, Wednesday, Friday group fitness for years, and it's what keeps me like,
Yes.
so I realized that like if I had noticed that like if I didn't get right back on the horse after coming back from vacation, like it affects my mental health, that I realize like how important it is for me to go to the gym regularly. And that's what I know I need, but it's a very personal thing for each person. So,
And I'm so glad you said that because I'm thinking about I used to, but I kind of got off the horse and I started back up with my daughter. I love because as I'm getting older, trying to find out what works for you, you got to find out what works for you. So I love
mhm.
Pilates.
Yeah, I have
It's
a lot of
something
friends
about
who do that.
Pilates that is calming for me. Like, but if I'm practicing it regularly, it definitely helps my mental. And so I class for me right now, they have Wednesdays and Saturdays. So if I can really try to make it, I do. But again, like sometimes Saturday, 10 a.m., I have something going on. And I was thinking about that. Do you have the club Pilates? Right now I'm with the Y. I don't know if I'm gonna go like totally focused on Pilates itself because I like to do a little bit of everything. But you're right, adding that more with like Pilates, I do cycling, but that I gotta be ready, like ready for cycling. Absolutely, like definitely finding some kind of outlet. And I was also I'm interested in deep breathing techniques. So I'm
Okay.
interested in exploring that a little bit more. But I think that's definitely important. So I definitely do try to do Pilates when I can. Absolutely, because you need some type of outlet. I can't even imagine like not having an outlet. Because even now, and I love what you said with the organization, starting with the end in mind, right? Like,
Mhm.
so I was thinking now, like I always start like, when are you going to have the students submit the final paper, right? So I look at the
Mhm.
calendar and I go there, and then I kind of start working backwards. Same
Because
type of
they're
method,
going to turn it in late. Someone's going to need an
right?
extension, and you
And I get
know,
so I get really anal when it's like I plan that out because I don't want to like be close to when I have to submit the
Exactly.
grades. I want to be well, like I want to be submit the grades the first day I can if I can. And so I really start from when are the grades due, the very first day I could submit the grades and kind of work backwards. So I agree. I definitely start with the end in mind and kind of like work backwards.
It's, I've had to give a couple incompletes over the years, both like this past semester as a teaching assistant and then once as an adjunct. But it was extenuating circumstances. And so,
Yeah,
exactly, how Dr. Johnson was able to work with you with this like, life altering situation being in the hospital that, I it breaks my brain to think that there are professors out there that like wouldn't work with you. And I am even especially like after the pandemic. Like I feel like you also get to know your students too throughout the
absolutely.
semester that it is a very very easy it's typically pretty easy to tell like
A
who
good
has
even
been
call.
present, engaged, but then things did not go so well for whatever reason
Right.
personally, physically, things that are out of their control. Like it is very easy to tell when a student is being serious. And so I'm glad I have not been, I'm still pretty green. I'm sure it'll come a day in my as a future educator of like, is a student being for serious? But it's, sometimes you just got to give them the benefit of the doubt and like whether they
Yeah.
are, they aren't, like we're not judge and
No,
jury. And
absolutely. Like
if but I guess even if you came up with some grandiose excuse, kudos on you for your creativity. But I don't know,
right.
it's our job to make them better humans and to continue to show them empathy so they'll continue to show empathy to others.
Absolutely.
So it's what
One
a
that I've been struggling with has definitely been with the AI.
oh my goodness gracious.
That's
Oh,
like on another episode.
I
I
don't I
have
have had so many argue with friends about this that like I have a couple friends that are of the idea that if you're smart enough to know how to use it, then like isn't that a good thing? And I'm like, not in the college education. Like, because when you're very crystal clear up front, like if we catch you using Chat GPT, like you're out of here. That like we're gonna ask you to drop the class. And so like we've had a
now
couple
see how that's what I want to like. How severe are you saying that? Like, if we catch you, that's it? Is it a warning? Is it
the problem is currently as it lies at Temple, we don't have a university wide policy.
right?
And so, I'm happy to share language with you from the syllabus that I've gotten from other professors. But at the same time, I think again it goes back to this extenuating circumstance of like, are we we're looking at it from are we is it an individual level or a professor friend of mine had I think 5 students out of his class all use AI to write a paper, and so it
Yep.
was
Last.
the I'm not mad, I'm disappointed, that, dad, mom, parent yelling at you of this is unacceptable, just get out of my classroom. That like I'm too mad, I'm not going to teach today. And so I feel like that was if you're kind of instilling fear in them, like you have been caught, do you give them another chance? Like, and so I think it just and how much was this paper worth? It's like we're going to give you a 0 on the paper. But like, are we going to force you to drop this course? And so I feel like with one particular student we had, it was um, definitely like kind of like made him scared and dangle for a little bit before like meeting with him after class. And it was, if we catch you again, we're going to make you drop the class. So I think it's just such a difficult topic and I'm very curious to see how we kind of continue to evolve over the next year or two with how
Yeah.
we as um educators are supposed to handle this because it is wild.
Yeah, I've had it's interesting that over the last 2 years. Like at first, I had two students maybe a year ago. And then my last semester, I had about 4 or 5 students on a final paper. And so I know I'm like a night.
Final
They say I'm too nice.
paper.
I know they say I'm too nice, and pe- people say I'm too nice. Other instructors say I'm too nice. I did say, listen, AI was detected. Um, we have this in the syllabus. We already have this policy. AI is unacceptable. Now, my policy, because I know, like you said, Temple doesn't have a policy. I'm not scared of AI as far as students utilizing it to resource for information as a
Yes.
resource.
Yes.
And
Don't
I
copy and
explain it
paste it.
right.
Just don't
I
copy and
explain that
paste
to my
it.
students because I don't think I should say no AI. As an educator, let's embrace technology, right? Because it's ever evolving and we need to stay with it. However, but using it right in a respective capacity. And so I know this semester I'm thinking, should we come up unanimously as a class, say this is going to be our policy? Am I giving
Oh,
this
I like that. Just talk about it up front. I think that's a
and
really smart
that we do I create a Google form or something and say, hey, we all would decide our policy and this is what we're sticking by? Am I
I
like
love
giving
that.
too
I think that's a great idea. I went to like one of the last sessions I went to when ARA was here in Philly, so the
okay to convince
American Education Research Association. So it's like
yes
the big
right
guns for education.
yes
That it was a panel about the use of AI,
oh
and so
wow
it was a really interesting conversation, and just they brought up some really interesting points because when you think about it, AI, all it is like pulling information from the internet. So it's really not all that different from using Google to like find answers. But at the same time, it is not 100% factual. And so, like, it's something to keep in mind that, like, you can't just ask it a question and expect like a fact to be returned back to you.
right
And
right
so, because all it does is scrub the internet and give you information. So that was something I didn't realize. And then also, you don't know where this information that you're putting into it is going. And so, one of the things we were talking about was putting in a qualitative interview to get it, like to maybe pull out some codes and pull out themes from that. But then
right
again, are you doing a disservice to anonymity because you're
mm,
taking this qualitative, interview that hasn't been scrubbed for anonymity and just
right
sending it out into the internet? Like, you're not supposed
right
to do that. So I don't know. It's um just really what
yeah, because no matter how much I say in that syllabus, it's not supposed to be like actually copy and paste on your final paper. You still have students do it. Right. And so that's the challenging part. And I'm like, do I buckle down and say if it's detected, like you will receive an F? Because I've
Mhm.
as an advisor, I've had students complain, but I'm like, you use
You
AI. What?
cheated. Like, it's
Yeah, like I had one
plagiarism, you
student,
know?
he did it 3 times.
Ugh.
And the professor was like, no. Third time he was like, no, this is it. I'm done. But yeah, I had a student. I said, resubmit it. I'm going to give you a chance. Now, I gave him an
Wow.
option because I feel like you should have options. You can either take an F and fail the course, or you could resubmit. Those are your only 2 options. And of course, most of them resubmit. But I had one like redo the AI again, like
Ugh.
unbelievable. And
I feel you. I feel you. Oh, it's gonna be a wild ride for sure. So we'll have you know what, we'll bring this up with Dr. Bailey on Monday nights, and maybe she can give us some insights onto what we as educators can be doing moving forward. So hopefully that'll be
Yeah,
helpful.
because everybody's. I didn't submit the students to the student conduct committee board, but I do know, like through working with students and advising students, some students have been reported.
Hmm.
So it's like, how far do you go? I'm like, I give you a chance, but I kind of like some way up front this go around this semester coming up for the fall. I was like, well, maybe we create it together and you like this is what it is. Like, is it a warning? And then next one is drop the class or you're gonna receive an F. And so that's why I struggle, like how much opportunity do you actually give students to violate what we already have in our syllabus?
Ugh.
Something to think about. I still have to mull that over.
Oh, well, we'll be talking about that throughout the semester.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an awesome, 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 awesome conversation about,
It
your
has.
experience in the academy, and now very excited for Monday nights.
Me
So
too.
Kizzy, the last thing I'm going to ask you, as a throwback to earlier seasons of Beyond the Venue, what is your favorite venue?
My favorite venue, I feel like I have two. All right. And so my favorite venue, the first one I'm going to say anywhere where I can gather and spend time with my family is a favorite venue of mine. So whether it's at a fancy restaurant, a family member's home, I just love spending quality time with my family. And then the second venue is anywhere water is. So if I'm going to be traveling, I'm paying extra for oceanfront, ocean view, sign me up. So like a super venue would be my family and I by the water.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love
So that's
it.
what I would say my favorite venue. What about you? Do
Oh,
you have a
me? Oh man,
favorite?
she turned the tables. It's I never it's I don't know. I do definitely agree with you. Like I love I hate sand. I hate like being in
Interesting.
like a sandy beach like in the water. Love a swimming pool. I will
Okay, okay,
I'm a Pisces.
okay.
I will go swimming anytime in a nice pool. That's actually jumping back to the mental health. I'm gonna try and go swimming as much as I can in the Philly public pools
Nice.
next month
Ooh.
before they shut them down and we go back to school. But I also like I've realized in the last couple of years like how much I also enjoy like a good oceanfront property and like hearing the waves. So one of my other classmates who was a previous she's on an earlier episode of this season of Beyond the Venue. Her husband's
Okay.
Puerto Rican, and so my husband and I had gone to Puerto Rico over the Thanksgiving break, just this past
Nice.
November. And
Wow.
so being at the beach there, like our very last night, we had an oceanfront room in San Juan, like before we flew out, and it was just so nice to just when you're sitting on that balcony, drinking a glass of wine, listen to the waves.
Yes.
Like I do love a good like oceanfront wave sunset situation. Totally right there with you.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yes.
so but yeah, I'd rather sit on the beach than go, and then I'll sit on the beach, but then go swim the pool.
Yeah.
Give me both, and that's what Puerto
That's
Rico has.
interesting. You're
So
the
yeah,
second person I met within the last 2 weeks. Like the secretary by my department. She's like, "Oh, I don't like the beach. The sand between my toes." And I'm like, "What?"
I'll
So
take the
that's
sand
so
between my
interesting.
toes, but like I don't like
Yeah.
the sand everywhere else.
Yeah.
Feet fine, except because our very last morning in Puerto Rico, it was 90 degrees, and it's like okay, let's go out and get coffee before we have to like check out, get to the airport. And so my husband was like, well, can we walk on the beach? And I was
I
like,
love it.
yeah, I guess. This did
She's
not
like,
go
"Wait a
well.
minute."
The issue is this: where was the foot shower? There was no foot shower. So I have Tiva sandals, so the strappies and
Yeah,
everything.
yep, yep,
And
yep.
so what ends up happening is the sand is just I'm just sinking. I mean, the sand is to your ankles. This isn't like casual, like hard sand that you're walking
Right,
on.
right, right.
So I am slogging through sand. We kind of get to where we need to get off the beach to go get the coffee. My feet are covered in sand. There's nowhere to wash them off.
Wow.
So I'm walking around, now like on sidewalks and concrete and stuff, but my feet are covered in sand and it's
Sand.
rubbing against the Tiva straps.
You're like,
So
"Ugh."
I'm like, this is, you're dripping in sweat because it's so hot out.
She
And
said, "I took one for the team."
First coffee place we go to closed, and I'm like, I'm going to die. Like, this is the worst. So finally, get our iced coffee. And I end up just spending a ton of money on bottled water at a gas station to just dump it
Oh,
all over my
wow.
feet.
Wow.
So I've definitely had plenty of wonderful walks on the beach, but
Yeah.
that was not one of them.
Wow. I feel interested. I'm interested in, been thinking about going to Puerto Rico. So I'll just have to talk to you on
Oh, let me know.
another time.
We had
Yes.
such a great time. So you can get a direct flight on Southwest out of BWI.
Okay.
Yeah, super easy. So
All
yeah,
right.
but yeah, we could talk more about Puerto Rico. You can also listen to our episode with Amy.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely will.
Kizzy, this has been
Absolutely.
so awesome. Very much looking forward to Monday nights. But thanks for
Yes.
being a guest on Beyond the Venue podcast.
Thank
And
you for having
yeah,
me.
absolutely. So wish us the best of luck on getting our manuscript published, and we'll definitely
Yes.
post updates to Instagram. So everyone have a great
Absolutely.
rest of your day.
Yes. Thanks you. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode from the fourth and final season of Beyond the Venue podcast. New episodes of this final season will drop on Fridays throughout the fall semester. Follow Beyond the Venue podcast on Instagram for details and updates about each episode, and stream all 4 seasons on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks so much for your support.